everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today's video is all about my reading plans for November, including Non-Fiction November. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books. And earlier this year, right at the beginning of the year, I said I was going to read at least one non-fiction book per month, and I didn't do that. I've been reading purely fiction for at least the last few months, and I want to try and rectify that a little bit in November, because here on BookTube there is a wonderful event to encourage us to read more non-fiction that comes around every November and is hosted by a book olive. And a book olive always makes 4 prompts, and I'm really not sure that I can make the 4 prompts fit this year, so I thought I would just show you some possibilities. I've gone very low key for this TBR. I would say it's probably the lowest key TBR you may have ever seen on this channel, and that is because I do seem to have not had as much reading time in September and October, and therefore I don't think I've really finished any of the things that I wanted to get finished, especially in October. I am anticipating that at least 1, maybe 2 of my Victorian reads will be still on the go as we go into November, and most of the other stuff that I mentioned in my October TBR is still as yet unread. So basically, most of my November TBR is going to consist of trying to read things that are on my TBR trolley in front of me. Now, I know you can't see that, but that does include some leftovers from Shorty September. It includes some leftovers that were sort of adjacent to Victober, like some Victorian set mysteries. I've still got a couple of books that I'd love to dip into for spooky season, and I don't think spooky season ends at the end of October on the dot, so I'm going to be carrying on into the dark November nights, still reading some spooky books. So plenty still to go on with from previous months, but I did want to join in with Non-Fiction November, and I want to try and read at least 1 non-fiction book this month, preferably 2, but we will see. So I have got here 6 options, and the 6 options that I have collected from my shelves, I thought that in light of the fact that my last video was all about the oldest books on my giant TBR, I have collected 2 of those oldest books as possibilities for Non-Fiction November, and I've just picked out the 2 that I was most in the mood for on this particular day. But if I change my mind and decide I'd rather read one of the other older non-fiction books, then I do have possibilities that were in that video as well. I've also picked out 2 more recent additions to the giant TBR in terms of non-fiction books, and those are the 2 that I probably most want to get to, because I don't think I got either of them this year. I think they're both from last year or the year before, but they're both books that I'm really excited for. So there's those, and in the middle, in between, I have 2 books that have been on my TBR for a long time, but not as long as the really long time books. So 6 options. Let's start with the middle range ones. So this one I did show for Mental Health May, and that's Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. This book, the title has kind of been a mantra to me when kind of dealing with anxiety in my life, and I do like to adopt that as what I do. So if I am afraid of something for some reason, which can be a lot of things with me, I like to do it anyway. But I have never actually read this book, even though I've had it for quite a while, and my mum bought me this. It's all about being able to push past your anxieties, and apparently this gives you insight and tools for dealing with anxieties. and I think it's pretty important for me to read this book, but whether I will read it in November, I do not know yet. But that is one possibility. My other sort of mid-term possibility that I've had for quite a while is a book about a cat, and it's called Dewey, the small town library cat who touched the world. And I think I might have showed this last nonfiction November. I'd really like to read this because it's about a cat who I believe was adopted by a library. I would really like to read this one. This one's by Vicky Myron with Brett Witter. Sounds like a cool story, so I would like to get to that if I can in November. Going straight on to the second animal book on the list. These are the two that are in the TBR tin, so I'm not forgetting about it. I'm not drawing names out of the TBR tin because I want non-fiction for this particular exercise, so I will try my very hardest to read at least one of these because I must read from the TBR tin every month now. So we have Endel by Alan and Sandra Parton, and I showed this in my last video. And Endel is an assistance dog who came to the family following Alan's rehabilitation after a serious head injury when he served in the Gulf War, and I believe Endel basically saved Alan's life in terms of like happiness and stuff, I think. But also I have read a bit about Endel in articles, and I think he was a very, very clever assistance dog who could do all sorts of things to help this family. So I would really, really like to get to that one. I think it will be lovely. The other one that I would really, really like to read that I showed last nonfiction November and didn't get to, but I did try the first chapter, is Danny Wallace's Join Me, the true story of a man who started a cult by accident. So this is about how Danny Wallace placed an advert in a newspaper saying join me, and began to receive passport photos from people who wanted to join whatever he was doing. It's all about that, and from reading the first chapter I know it's going to be very funny, so I would like that in November. I think that would be some good light relief, so that's another pick that I might pick up. So on to the two that I would really, really love to read that are newer on the TBR, but I'm very eager to get to. The first one is Murder Isn't Easy, The Forensics of Agatha Christie. It's been a long time since I've read a non-fiction book about Agatha Christie's like forensics or poisons. I really enjoyed A is for Arsenic, which was a great book all about the different poisons that Christie used. This one by Carla Valentine is all about Agatha's incredible knowledge, showing how she stayed at the cutting edge of forensics, from ballistics to fingerprint analysis, as seen through much-loved characters such as Poirot and Miss Marple. Really, really interested to read that one, and I have been ever since it's been on my TBR, which I got this for Christmas, not last Christmas, but the Christmas before, so I would really, really love to get to this in November. I'm very excited about that one. The final one that is a possibility for nonfiction November this year is Kathy Rensenbrink's Write It All Down. If you've been on my channel for long, you will know that Kathy Rensenbrink wrote one of my favourite books of all time, it has become, which was Dear Reader, a book about books. And I did make a video a couple of years ago now, I think, about my top 5 favourite books about books, and that was right before I read Kathy Rensenbrink's Dear Reader, so it didn't feature Dear Reader, but Dear Reader shot to the top of the charts. I love a book about books. This one is actually about writing books, and writing is something that I've had a go at in the past. I would say that I would like to be a writer, but that I don't put enough effort into writing, really. November is also known as NaNoWriMo in some circles, which means National Novel Writing Month, which is where people take on the challenge of trying to write a novel in a month. And I have participated in that several times, so I do have some like very, very rough first drafts in terms of writing. But anyway, I'm not taking on NaNoWriMo this year, but I would like to still think about writing and read about writing in another Kathy Renson-Brink non-fiction, and this one's actually about how to put your life on the page. So I think it's about sort of writing memoirs, but writing other things as well, I'm sure. And it's a really, really beautiful book. But it says on the inside cover, do you have a story bottled up inside you that you feel too nervous and uncertain to share? Best-selling author Kathy Renson-Brink is here to help you write it all down. Whether it's self-doubt or a busy schedule getting in your way, Kathy has a gentle word of advice to guide you through the difficult but exhilarating process of wrestling your story onto the page. Practical, down-to-earth and encouraging, this book emphasises the power inherent in the act of writing and helps you to set aside the fears that hold back many writers. This book is perfect for complete beginners, habitual journalers, seasoned writers and everyone in between. And I was lucky enough to meet Kathy Renson-Brink in real life at the Women's Prize for Fiction live in the summer, and that was just such a fangirl moment. So we have a book by a favourite author, we have a book about a favourite author, we have two potential books about animals. I do love cats and I do love dogs, and we have one about anxiety and one about one humorous book. So yeah, a fair range for non-fiction November of possibilities, and as I've said, there will definitely be books that I will be continuing on with. I don't know if I'll still be finishing off Last Argument of Kings, which I'm reading with Gemma from Gemma Books and Jack from Spread Book Joy. That's been an audio project. We've listened to the whole First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. We still have quite a few hours to go because it's a long book, so that might be carrying on. I think that Dombey and Son will be carrying on, which I'm reading on my own, and potentially my buddy read with Nikki of Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy will be continuing on into November. And the only other buddy read that I have booked in for November that isn't non-fiction is a plan to read The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. If you've been here much this year, you'll know that my favourite book of the year so far, I think tentatively still holding on to the title, we'll find out in my next wrap up, is Demon Cophead by Barbara Kingsolver. That was my first Barbara Kingsolver book, and I'm really eager to get to another one. So I'm going to be borrowing the Poisonwood Bible from my mum, and I'm going to be reading it with the lovely Jack from Spread Book Joy, and hopefully that will take place in November. That is my other firm reading plan. My other reading plan, as I've said to you, is to try and get through some of the things that are on my TBR trolley that just haven't been got to in previous months. That includes a couple of library books that are still languishing on here that I really should read and take back to the library, and my Mr. B's books that I need to catch up with. So plenty to read in November without making more concrete plans. I hope you've enjoyed this slightly lighter TBR today, and do let me know in the comments which of these 6 would you make your priority possibility for non-fiction November. Do you like the sound of any of these? What will you be reading for non-fiction November? I will also link a Book Olive's Introduction to Non-Fiction November so that you can go and check that out and find out all about it. That will be linked in the description down below. If you have enjoyed this video today, please do give it a like, and please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. As I've said, I would love to hear from you in the comments. If you don't have a comment to make today, do leave me an emoji about one of these books. And I will hope to see you all again very soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.